How are you? I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking. My name is Mike. Hopefully you've been enjoying the chit chats. Hopefully you enjoyed Dancing with the Killers, Dance of the Dead. Hopefully you checked out the music video. That shit is trippy as hell. Well, as I'm being held hostage in my closet right now by myself, I'm holding myself hostage. What I'm going to do is share a conversation with you. It's called Continuing the Conversation. It's by community member Rex Ophora. I hope you guys enjoy what him and Luke are working on right now. Luke Skywalker. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Enjoy the show.
Hello.
Hey, T-Rex. Can you hear me?
How's it going there, Mr. Skywalker?
Doing great.
Excellent.
And hello, DmtWorld.
Yeah, hey guys.
All
How's
of
it
you
going?
out there listening in the future. Me and Rex here have decided to talk to you about books for a while and just see where it goes. We're thinking of calling it the book club or just book club.
Yeah, so this is a idea we came up with. Both of us have a love of books in this thread, and we are just looking to share that love with you guys and hopefully get you all involved, having conversations with us about the stuff we've been reading.
I think today we kind of decided that the subject is consciousness and ego, which I think is a great place to start.
I couldn't agree more.
Do you want...
At least that's what I think.
Oh God, that was so cheesy. I like it.
Let's introduce ourselves just for those that may not know us from the site, as well as many of you probably do. But I'm T-Rex.
Go
ahead.
No.
All right, so I'm T-Rex. I'm a 38-year-old dude that lives in Vermont. At least that's what my ego tells me. And I got 2 kids and a wife, making me a husband and a father, according to said ego. And I've been into this stuff for a couple of decades now. I got into it when I was 18, and I've been diving down the rabbit hole ever since. That's a little about me.
Character is Luke Skywalker. If we're talking about this stuff, consciousness and ego, I've been on that since I was like 5 years old, and I had this like epiphany of, man, I'm fucking tiny compared to the world. And then I thought of the universe and had this explosion in my head, like, oh fuck. I couldn't process it. But this, I guess, world with the medicines is something that started, I think, like 10 years ago, and this community has changed my life, and I want to contribute to it however I can.
Awesome. That's awesome. So a question for you. It kind of came up there. You used the word
medicine.
Medicine. I like that term. And there's so many words for it. Is that the one you prefer?
I change it up.
Entheogen, psychedelic, it doesn't matter. They're all interchangeable, or?
Yeah, I like them all. I think they all have different places and times in conversation. I used that one because, it's like introduction, and kind of like I didn't want to, I guess, start it off with words that people might not know. But entheogen, I think, is one of my favorites. Psychedelics, classic. I like them all.
So when did you join DmtWorld?
I think like April or May.
Yeah, so I thought it was right around the same time as me.
I think
at the middle of April.
I think it all opened up in like the end of March or something. And as soon as I found out about it, I was like, oh, I got it off Reddit. I was in this LSD subreddit because they have so much cool stuff in it. But this is just so much better.
You found it through Reddit, huh?
Yeah.
I found it through Facebook.
Of course.
The wonderful, wonderful Facebook.
Well, that's good.
Shout out to KB for introducing me and bringing me aboard. Heck yeah, you're the best, Happy.
So you knew her on Facebook. That's cool.
She was part of a cactus group that I was in, yeah.
Nice.
And I may have been one of the few people from those groups that decided to come over because I sure haven't seen too much other
it's interesting
activity.
Everyone was so like, oh, what's the difference from Nexus and Shroomery? Why would I go there? How's the security? And it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think the thing that got it for me was just its infancy. The fact that it was just starting.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool.
Time we have the chance to like do something new and try something different, to me that's very attractive.
Well,
definitely I'm drawn to new.
That makes me think of something that I can't remember whose quote it is, but they said that your mind is like a hill or a mountain that's full of snow. And the more you do something, the more like thoughts that you repeat or the habits that you repeat, it's like you're skiing down the hill, and so that path becomes more ingrained. And so whenever you do one of these entheogens or whatever, what is kind of a good metaphor for what's happening would be there's a fresh layer of snow, and you get to choose the new paths that you want to take. And so what you're saying about it being new, I mean, that you're completely right. We get to decide inadvertently almost just by contributing how the community evolves. And I think that's really cool.
That's an awesome analogy. For everybody that doesn't know this about me, I work at a ski mountain, and anytime you're going to bring skiing and snowboarding into a talk about entheogens, I'm fully on board. Right now we're getting rain at my mountain. I would much prefer that nice new layer of snow to break new trail. But so yeah, you've been on the site since the same about time as me now, and we've met tons of new awesome people and made new relationships, and both of us have started some groups to try and to focus on different areas within the guise of DmtWorld. Tell me about your groups. What do you got going on?
Oh God, none of them really like take off or anything. It's not like there's a bunch of
but they're going to now, because we're going to tell people about them.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the first ones I made, actually the first one I made was for my state, Texas, so that I could find all the other Texans if there were any. And it turns out there's a bunch. We're almost to 100. I mean, I'm sure that's just a percentage of the people that are actually, here and contributing underground, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
And then I started one called Herbal Benefits. I started Everything Aliens. I don't know. I've got like 8 or 9.
Cool.
Political conversation group. I can't think of any others. I know there's at least 3 or 4.
I got a bunch too. I also immediately started with a regional group, and to find the others in New England. Vermont's a little too small to focus on, so we went regionally there, and I've actually met up with a few awesome other members of the site, and we've done a regional camp out. It was our first event. It was pretty awesome. We met in the mountains, in the Green Mountains, out in the wilderness, and camped out and hung out all night. So
I'm so jealous I wasn't there.
Super cool. I can't wait for the next one. Hopefully lots more people show up, but the small group is just as awesome too.
Yeah.
So cool to find new people using this site. And then tomorrow, I am driving to New York City with another site member, and we're going to see Spangle in New York City.
Oh yeah, you told me about that. Do you know him before the world, or did you meet him on?
No, so we're talking about one of Jerry's kids, my boy. We actually had never met on the site. We got to know each other, and we've been talking for months now, and trying to like get together and hang out. But busy, and this is finally the time we're gonna get to hang out. And what better way to do it than go to a Spangle show?
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to one of Jerry's kids, my boy.
Which one? I'm just kidding.
probably the black sheep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first group as well, was the regional thing, and so far it's going well. My regional group even has a private Discord server where we have a little chat and trying to figure this stuff out and trying to create new meetups in the future. Then I also just created groups for all of my interests. So there's a group for Kratom, there's a group for MDMA, there's a group for a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, that was also just I decided to make different groups for all of the different interests, and like discussion of mainstream religion is one that's been one of my interests for a very, very long time. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church as a preacher's kid, so I've always been pretty interested in world religions, and I've done a lot of mission work as a kid, traveling around the world and learning about other religions while I was like trying to brainwash them into my way. So it's just always been on my mind. That's probably one of my favorite topics to chat about usually.
It's a good one.
Extreme religion. It is a lot of fun.
It's full of controversy.
Oh yeah, good stuff. Real good stuff. But yeah, so the podcast we're doing here though is wanting to talk about books. So,
which is how we became friends.
It is
over books.
We met in the
bookshelf.
The bookshelf, yeah, on the bookshelf group we met and exchanged some books and recommendations.
It's kind of funny that the like details of the group said something like sharing pictures of the books is all they wanted, and then I kind of like, I think I asked and told them like, hey, if this isn't cool, I'll take it down. But they said no, they didn't say anything, so I just started like posting a bunch of PDFs of some stuff that I really think needs to be shared.
Yeah, and I mean, in my group of friends, like here at home, like I have tons of books. I have books coming out my ears, and the last thing I need is more books. And my wife's always telling me to get rid of them. So the way I get rid of them is just share them with my friends. So I'm constantly giving books to friends.
Mm-hmm.
And in my twisted worldview, sharing PDFs is a shame. The thing is, I get to keep it as well. But we're just sharing books with friends, you know. But I will say that those authors among our group, go out and buy their books. We have a couple awesome authors on the site, and they need our support. Like the Alien Theory, I know of. Dick Kahn, Andrew Gallimore. I know there's a couple others, and I can't come to mind right away. But yeah, we have a lot of creative, talented people in our group, so support them when you can. Yeah, actually, I've been thinking that having those PDFs probably isn't the best idea for now. I think it's okay, but as we get like publicity, I think it could cause issues, and so I think probably in the next month or so, I'll probably take all mine down. Yeah, I think it's a good thing to think about when it is just sharing with a couple friends. You know, it's different than dropping it out for everybody and hurting the market. But for now, I love being able to share stuff with friends that when they have a question, be able to provide a resource to help them out, you know? Yep. Exactly. So yeah, what have you been reading?
I was just about to.
Bookshelf?
Hell yeah, I was just about to. It's so cool. I feel like I've known you my whole life, dude. They're like an older version of me almost. I'm 26 soon. So it's not like you're an old man or anything compared to me.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I'll take it.
But what's even cooler is it just seems like we're always on the same page. Like before we got on this conversation, whenever you were, I guess you were typing something about how long we should talk, and I had already sent the message. I'm thinking an hour and a half or so. And it's just so cool. Right. And like just now, you're like, "What books you been reading?" And I was literally about to like say exactly that. I've been reading this book called My Big Toe. It's by Thomas Campbell, and it's fascinating. It's a trilogy. TOE stands for Theory of Everything, and he believes that we are part of a virtual reality, but not in the sense that he doesn't think that like just Earth or whatever that's all a simulation. He claims that he can like astral project, and that there's a whole other dimension out there, and that he does it regularly and through meditation, and that our reality is one of many realities, and that Earth is like a training ground, and once you get quote unquote past Earth, I guess you reincarnate so many times until you well, that's my understanding at least. He didn't say all of this, but that's what I've gotten from it. That you evolve and go into this different. Actually, he says that. You know what? I don't want to misquote him, but I do want to read a few things that he has said.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, hit us with it.
So I was gonna read a bunch of this, but I'm thinking maybe. No, yeah, I'll read all of it. Okay. It may be conceptually useful to consider computer consciousness as the synergy that's created by the sum of the computer's hardware and software parts. The larger consciousness ecosystem evolves, increasing its synergy as its parts move toward lower entropy configurations through an iterative process we call the consciousness cycle. And there's a few words that not everyone probably knows. I'm a mechanical engineer, so entropy is normal to me, and synergy is just the opposite, kind of. Entropy is the increase of chaos, pretty much. So he's... I'll keep reading. Consciousness is energetic, entropy reducing result, not a mechanism or device. Computers, brains, and reality cells are mechanisms. Simply put, consciousness represents the energy of organization. One does not make a consciousness system, one makes a system that supports the evolution of consciousness. Consciousness, like a flower, cannot be directly constructed, but grows when given suitably fertile conditions. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, why wouldn't consciousness be the same as everything else? You can't grow a plant without suitable conditions. You can't, grow a chicken without the right, temperature range. Even a human, if
right.
the mom is too stressed, then the kid feels it, and it's not, suitable.
Right. It's super interesting. I actually was listening to a podcast today. It was Making Sense podcast with Sam Harris, and he had his wife on, Annika Harris, who wrote a book recently called Consciousness, and it was her talking with Donald Hoffman, who wrote a book, The Case Against Reality, which is I have not read, but I have read Consciousness, and they were talking right in the same vein about the same stuff, about how, and his way of even explaining his theory was talking about using like simulation type language to describe what's real, like the way he put, I'm trying to put the thought together here. He said what's real in real life, you know, when we think like a Corvette, you know, if there's a Corvette sitting in front of me and you, we both are going to see that Corvette. But he said it's very similar to if we were in the virtual reality looking at a Corvette. Both of us would see that Corvette in virtual reality. But all that was a representation of something that's the only way we can understand it. And in reality, that Corvette is a bunch of, you know, bits and computer code. But both of us would see it as the Corvette. So then he takes that to real reality, or the reality that we all walk in, and he says that even though that Corvette we both see is the same, we don't understand what it actually is. So the only way to talk about it is the descriptions we've given it, and the ways we've learned to describe things and see things.
Exactly.
And share that. Very interesting stuff. Have you read Annika Harris's book, Consciousness?
I've not. I've never heard of her.
Oh, it's awesome. So Sam Harris is
I know about Sam Harris.
Well-known. Yeah. So I first learned about her book when he had her on his podcast. Can you imagine having your wife on your podcast?
No.
It was an interesting one too. But her book is absolutely amazing. She really dives into the problem of consciousness, and she pretty much falls to the panpsychism realm of things, to where there's consciousness in everything. And
I could see that.
The idea that it's at a certain complexity, consciousness all of a sudden exists, just spontaneously.
Yeah,
that's
I think
the theory that, you know, I think scientific materialism would say that consciousness, if they admit to it existing at all, is something that at a certain level of complexity
just
spontaneously
appears.
Happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is nonsense.
Yeah, just that it doesn't make
in my opinion
to me, but I like toying with the idea either way.
Yeah.
It's fun. But yeah, because at what complexity does that consciousness explode? Where's the line? I want to find it.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that there's a variety of levels, and that you know, at a certain point we can see it because, you know, our sensors, meaning our eyes and ears and perception, are sensitive enough to, you know, pick it up.
Right. Yeah. And the ideas she toys with in her book too are, well, she uses the definition early on for what is consciousness. The definition that they play with is something that has an experience of being it. So if you can have an experience of being Luke Skywalker, there's consciousness there.
Yeah.
If there's an experience of being a turtle, there's something there. But is there an experience of being a chair?
Or a rock?
Or a rock? There probably is, but we couldn't define it the way that we would define our own consciousness. So I think it's an interesting definition to the fact that something has something that it's like to be it.
Yeah.
I think that's a fun definition for sure.
Fun and pretty simple.
Yeah.
Thomas Campbell has he's got his own consciousness definition. I guess this is like the definitions that he uses as he's talking. It's not necessarily the definition, it's just how he understands it and how he wants to talk about it. But he's got 4 different I guess criteria, you call it. One of them, oh, here they are. What do you think? I should say the concepts and define them, or just say the concepts?
Sure, hit us with it. Give it all.
All right. It says 4 concepts define dynamic, evolving, aware consciousness. The first one is self-awareness. consciousness requires the ability to sense and at least partially experience the state of its being. It must notice and respond to it must notice and respond to at least some internal and external environmental pressures. So under that, just even that first concept, probably a rock is not a conscious being, although I think Native Americans would disagree.
Yeah.
The second one is evolutionary viability or potential. Successfully evolving consciousness systems require a large enough selection of possible future states to ensure profitability over a wide range of environmental pressures and constraints. An entity explores its potential by expanding into the available possibilities and letting the profitability of each variation determine whether the variation continues to evolve or fades away. So I know that we this is kind of, I guess, off track because I sent you the quotes that I was thinking about talking about, but then you said a definition of consciousness, and I was like, let me jump around to that. I think it's,
that's good stuff. I like hearing all the different. Hard to talk about it when you don't know what it means. So let's get definitions out there. I like it.
Cool. I'll keep going to number 3, which is the ability to modify the self. Consciousness must be able to intentionally change its state of being in response to evolutionary constraints and pressures, even if that intention is extraordinarily dim, which I guess would be like bugs.
Or even plants.
Yes, definitely.
Just reaching for light. They're to be able to adjust their position.
Yeah.
Will be changing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think something that is not widely accepted or even considered, except maybe in this community, is that maybe plants don't have a dim consciousness. Maybe what we see isn't, the entire plant. People used to always believe that each plant had a spirit attached to it or something like this. Yeah. And maybe what we see is just, how they get food.
Right. Yeah, I think plant consciousness is a fun idea to toy with, and that's always my go-to argument whenever I get into battles with vegans. Love you, vegans. No, because I myself was vegan for a very long time, and I now have a farm where I raise meat for my family. And the people I can relate most to when it comes to food are vegans typically, because they're very conscious of what they're putting in their body, opposed to just the regular run-of-the-mill American who's just going to stuff whatever he wants in his face.
Especially if
I get along with them well, but the argument I always fall back to is I personally believe plants have some consciousness, and most of the vegan arguments based on they don't eat animals because of their consciousness. And
yeah. I think
plants probably have similar levels of consciousness depending on the species, because there's some animals that are not doing anything.
Yeah.
And then there's plants that are super active.
Changing the world.
Yeah, exactly.
I think absolutely. I think that animals, in many cases, probably have dimmer. Sorry, I'm also a husband and making lunch. I think they have some animals might have a dimmer consciousness than many plants. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think that's a
especially
fun
humans
idea to play with. Right?
Freaking monkeys.
All right, number 4.
Number 4, intelligence, artificial or natural. Consciousness must possess at least a rudimentary capability to store and process information. Intelligent action is the result. Sorry, I looked away for a second. I had to find my spot. Intelligent action is the result of integrated, coherent information processing, hardware and software, in the most general sense of those terms, that enables the accumulation of lessons learned within memory, performs analytic functions such as decision-making, fight or flight, and compares before and after states to evaluate the results of actions taken. The value of a particular lesson, decision, or comparison is ultimately judged by how much it facilitates increasing or maintaining a system's, in parentheses, entities, profitability relative to its internal and external environments. That's it.
I don't know. That's a whole lot more than just there being something that it's like to be something.
Yeah.
I like that. The definition dove in a little further.
It's good to start out simple, though. Nothing. I like your, what is her,
Annika Harris.
Annika Harris. I'm definitely going to look into that. And that other book you mentioned sounded cool, too. What was it? The Something to Reality, the Argument Against, or?
The Case Against Reality. And I haven't read that one yet. It's on my list. He was very compelling in his argument on the podcast there. So he's somebody that studied consciousness for a very long time, I guess. Whereas Annika Harris is like a amateur philosopher. This is an actual,
like you and me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Just an amateur. But yeah, cool. Her book is really easy too. It's not a hard book. For being about such a difficult topic, it's written to the layman, and it's only like 150, 200 pages tops, I think. So it's a fun, quick read. I enjoyed it. And
cool.
I got it on Scribd, I think. So it's even available as an audiobook on there.
Nice.
But yeah. There's actually an author that I'm a fan of. His name's Paul Selig, and he's not actually, I guess calling him an author isn't true. He's a channel. So he channels these big called the guides. And the guides bring forward this very esoteric teachings. And he sits and channels these whole books. And they'll sit and just talk to crowds, and then it's all written down, transcribed, and then he releases it as a book, unedited. So he's writing entire books unedited.
Holy shit. That's
But he actually has a quote, "What you look at as reality is actually a composite of ideas, teachings, or collective agreements made into form." And like I said, it's not his quote, it's the guides, but that is what the guides teach as what reality is, that it's these ideas and agreements that come together. Like we said, it could be the code behind everything, that we don't understand how to talk about, but it gives us the place to say that's a Lamborghini or whatever.
Yeah. Well, speaking of code, I have been learning about codes lately at school and stuff, and anytime that I study something, I kind of see how it applies to my life. And with code and like fluid dynamics, it's interesting where my thought processes went, because I start seeing people as not like they are programs, but like they have programs. So I think a good example of that is like, no offense, but the people that brought you up, you told me, have a lot of programs. In my opinion, they are very set in their ways, and they probably nothing will change them. Even whenever facts come up that should prove many of the things that they're doing wrong, or even just the fact that they probably don't. Do you mind if I mention what denomination
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I was raised Southern Baptist.
Yeah, so I don't know all of the specifics about Southern Baptist, but I believe that is an offshoot of Christianity somehow.
Yeah, it's a
My
Protestant
understanding.
branch. Yes,
And
evangelical, I would say.
from most people that I've talked to, and I mean, I grew up Catholic, so I from my understanding, the things that Jesus taught were about love, not hate. And from my understanding, there's a lot of hate in the well, not just Southern Baptist, but most Christian communities. There's a lot of love too, but there's just a lot of people that have taken advantage of the love and the I don't want to say naive, I think is a good word. The naivety.
I got this awesome quote.
Shoot.
It's Ram Dass. I love Ram Dass.
Oh yeah, Ram Dass is awesome.
So this is a quote from Ram Dass. I believe this was something I transcribed and wrote down because I loved hearing it so much. It goes, both Christians and Jews are deeply concerned about someone called Jesus Christ. He's a problem to both. He is a man who came out and discovered he was God.
Yeah.
And that simply is impermissible. The Jews handled it in one way. The Christians handled it as effectively in another way. The Christians handled Jesus perfectly, even more tactfully than the Jews, by putting him on a pedestal and saying, this was the only man who was ever God, and nobody else was really so before, and certainly no one can be so afterwards.
Okay.
Stop right there, put him on an altar, bow down to him, worship him, so that everything you had to say would be null and void. And it worked.
Hell yeah. I love that quote. I wrote it down too. I wrote it down though when I was listening to Alan Watts. It's almost word for word. I wonder if they borrowed it from each other or like if this was something that was accidentally channeled.
Yeah.
You know how
it said, and I loved it. It meant a lot to me.
Me too.
And that's exactly what they've done. Put him there, bow down to him, and then everything's null and void. Doesn't matter what he said. It just matters that he died, and you have to believe that. So it's a weird place, but sorry for sidetracking there. I love Ram Dass.
Dude, there's no
think about him.
There's no such thing as sidetracking. Like cool. Most of our conversations just riffing off of one another.
So speaking of sidetracking, my big toe.
Yeah.
Does he touch on entheogens, altered consciousness at all?
Man, you would expect so, right? I googled his name.
I mean, that book's what, like 1,000 pages?
Yeah, he hasn't mentioned it yet, and I don't think he will. I looked up his name online, actually on YouTube, because that's how I found him, was on YouTube. He talks about his books, and like the way he talks about it is fascinating. He's just a brilliant dude. He was actually a physicist, which is ironic that he's talking about astral projection, but he says he has proof, and in book 3 apparently he'll tell you how to do it. We'll see if it works out like that. But
I can't wait to see you project some stuff.
But he in the video I found of him talking about that he basically says that it's he doesn't disregard it, which I think is good. He says that it's like a shortcut, basically, and that in the long run it's not worth it, and that it's better to develop the ability, the consciousness to do it without it. He says that he doesn't think they are worth the time, but that's like my fluid mechanics teacher saying that, you know, this assignment's going to be really easy, but it's like super difficult because he's a doctor in the subject and I'm a junior.
Right. Yeah. No, I have this argument with lots of folks constantly. Not argument, discussion.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of friends that are into meditation, breath work, holotropic, and every sort of way, yogis, and they often will argue that these are just cheating, or these are just like shortcuts, and even Ram Dass, who I absolutely love, and he talks about this a lot. I think his quote is, "When you're already in Detroit, you don't have to take a bus to get there."
Yeah.
Which I think is a great way to put it. And I get it. If you're sitting in that in your higher self already, you don't need a shortcut. But there's a lot of us that are stubborn as hell and or too thick-headed to even wake up to start it. At least I am. I know that about myself. I would never have tried meditation if I hadn't first eaten 8 hits of LSD. It just never would have happened for me. My fidgety ass would have never sat still long enough to even think that breathing was a good idea.
That's hilarious.
It's like, what's the other famous quote? When you get the message, hang up the phone,
Yep.
But when the phone rings, you got to pick it up sometimes. I think that was a quote that I heard Alex say the other day when I was chatting with him. I think that's a great quote.
Oh, yeah. Alex told me another thing that I really like. It was about consciousness. He said, and I don't know if this was his quote or where it came from, but it was fascinating to me. He said that each human being is, and this leads me right into the next quote. Each human being is like a drop in a river, and the river is consciousness, I guess. And that whenever the river hits a waterfall and all those droplets separate while they're falling, or most of them, that is the human experience. And whenever you hit the bottom, that is you joining consciousness again.
Going back into it.
And
interesting.
The quote from My Big Toe, he says, "The consciousness you possess is a fragment of a larger individuated consciousness. Your fragment and many other fragments of other individual units of consciousness are all interacting by exercising their intent and making choices within the bounds of the space-time rule set, which defines a virtual physical matter reality," which he calls PMR, "in order to speed up the process of personal consciousness evolution. Your consciousness is self-organizing form of potential energy, an accumulation of digital synergy created by a multitude of profitable, intense, and wise choices." That's it.
Right on. Yeah, that whole theory of going back to something greater is also a fun one to play with. And I mentioned both of these authors before, but Dick Kahn and Andrew Gallimore, the books they've recently put out, I've heard them both talk about this same idea, and they both kind of offer the idea that the DMT realm and the entities we see there are just us. They're, if you will, like the giant ocean of us.
Yeah.
And the key is just a way to allow the human form of us to open back up to that entity that we will go back to being part of when we're done. And Dick Kahn has a bit more of an occult view of it, but
which just means like secretive, right?
Theory.
Occult.
Right. Yeah, it's the hidden truth or whatever, And I guess when I say occult, I also he has more of a layman's view of it, whereas Andrew goes at it from this super sciencey, heady place that's way over my head. I absolutely love this book. If you're listening out there, Andrew, I love you, man, but you're way smarter than I am. But both of them, that theory to play with is just a whole lot of fun. And then that, the Christianity side of things, because I always try and tie my understanding of that into this stuff. There's a teacher named Karoli Baba, and he has a cool way of looking at it that kind of goes with this. He says, "These medicines will allow you to come and visit Christ, but you can only stay 2 hours. Then you have to leave again. this is not the true samadhi, or I don't know the word.
I think you said it right.
Anyway. All right. It's better to become Christ than to visit him. But even the visit of a saint for a moment is useful. But love is the most powerful medicine. So the samadhi is a perfect union of the individualized soul with the infinite spirit. That's what that means. But yeah, so dipping into the Christ self, calling yourself the higher self, or however it's worded a zillion different ways, still kind of speaks to that same truth.
Totally. I love that.
Interesting.
I on that same topic, tangential kind of, there's something called spirit science. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's on YouTube, and actually this is kind of what got me into all this stuff. I started learning about chakras, and I was rolling at the time. I stayed up like 3 hours later than everybody else after the rave reading about chakras and shit like that. But lost my train of thought. We were talking about... moving on. Never mind.
Okay. Fair enough. So yeah, chakras. You started digging into those. What's your take on that stuff?
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Centers and all of that.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't understand it completely, but the idea that, well, first of all, I think it's fascinating that before we had, the technology to, or I guess the understandings that we do about science and the way the body works, we what they say is that the chakras all are in specific spots, and it just so happens that all of those spots are also in line with our endocrine system, which is where all of our hormones are produced. and that whenever someone is like in a bad emotional state, that depending on the reason for that bad emotional state, it will close or clog these chakras. And that when that happens, the endocrine, the gland that's connected to that chakra will not work as well. And in turn, the hormones that you need to regulate your emotions are not produced, and it causes dysfunctions in the body, including cancer and all sorts of shit, sicknesses. I don't know about causes, contributes to, let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. To me, I spend a lot of time thinking about balance, because I'm completely out of balance, and I have been since I was a little kid. But my physical balance as well. I'm not falling over physically, but I feel like I have at least one energy center in me constantly out of balance, and it's what probably causes me more suffering and stress than anything else. Is just somehow I let those centers get clogged, and then something else produces too much, and know, whether it's my spirituality's out of whack, or my sexuality's out of whack, or my emotions are out of whack, or it always seems to be because I let one thing take too much attention and let the other areas flip. And just finding perfect balance in my life is something that's like the ultimate goal that I just don't foresee myself ever getting. But I desperately want to,
Yeah.
Because my ADHD mind gets so impassioned with things and just keeps driving down the same road when I should be paying attention to all the other roads too,
Yeah. Missed your exit a few times. Take
a
whole bunch of U-turns.
Make my own exit sometimes, and drive through the field and end up with corn in my teeth.
Well, you can do that if you've got a truck of some sort, but not if you got a small car.
No, I guess I got a monster truck, because I end up in all kinds of places I don't need to be sometimes. But I don't know. I love the teachings that go with chakras and energy centers. And you were just saying before when we talked, you were talking about electromagnetics or something, talking about the energy inside of you. And I've read that those like emanate or start at these centers. And I don't know, you know more than me because you were trying to explain it to me. But
well, I'm not even, honestly, I guess that came from whenever I started listening. Oh, well, that was that was spirit science too. I can't remember the first thing we were going to talk about, but spirit science brought up the Heart Math Institute, which is an organization that is studying the connection between the brain and the heart, and how your emotions directly change your state of mind, but also how your state of mind can contribute to, not your state of mind, your thoughts can contribute to the way that you feel. And they go into the the measured fact that your brain, with its electrical impulses, also produce magnetic fields, which is something that everyone in the scientific community knows. But something that most people don't pay attention to is that your heart has one too, and it's actually bigger, infinitely so. Well, supposedly, like I said, it's only like a 3-foot radius from the heart, but that's just because their sensors aren't sensitive enough. They can't measure past 3 feet. I think probably all of us are connected in the heart when we choose to be.
Yeah. So the energy you said that, I'm sorry, you gotta explain for me slower. The heart's, what is it that's emanating?
So you have, because the heart has electrical impulses, same as the brain, it produces electromagnetic frequency. You've got a field around you.
So it's a free field of like vibrating frequency.
It's a magnetic frequency. So the brain, sorry, not the brain. Electrical signals are in tandem with magnetics. If you have a magnetic field, there's an electronic component, and vice versa. And so since we use electricity to function, you produce a field. And another thing, so the direction is important. Your whatever, so say there's 2 neurons that are connected, and they an electrical impulse is sent across one to the other, the nodes or whatever. The direction that electrical signal goes at a 90-degree angle is the magnetic field. And so that's why it goes away from you and creates like some sort of, I guess I've always seen it in pictures as a sphere, but who knows really what it looks like. People say toroidal or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And so my thinking, something that I've always come back to is that when you take certain substances, it amplifies it. Well, let me rephrase that. When you take any substance, it alters it. And specific substances, like the ones that our community revolves around, is I think mostly amplifiers, and they distort it in some way. I've always used this explanation whenever I talk to people about animals and how they can tell almost, or it seems like it at least. How you'll be, like at the peak or whatever, and the cat comes up and jumps in your lap and looks at you all funny, or
Right.
the dog just will not stop barking, like running around like crazy, or my chickens. I have chickens, and they're crazy. So yesterday I partook in a journey, and there was a point where I was at the most intense part. I'm laying on the floor in my bathroom. There's carpets, like little rugs, and I had my blanket and a pillow, just because this room was the darkest room. It was during the day and it was too bright for me. And excuse me, sorry. I'm sure that sounded way too loud through the microphone. They wouldn't shut up. I could hear them from my freaking bathroom. They were just going crazy. And I could hear dogs just barking up a storm, like maybe, I don't know, quarter-mile radius. I'm not really sure how far, but it was just odd to me. Like, I've been home at this time of day on this day before, and the dogs were not going this crazy, like in all directions. If it was one direction, I could think like, oh, maybe, something is just disturbing those dogs. But it was like I could hear a dog barking in this direction, all around me. It was like these dogs were going crazy, and it seemed like it corresponded with whenever my chickens were going crazy.
That's interesting. I've also always thought that animals have some weird sense about that stuff, but I've definitely never tested it or researched it at all. But yeah, my cat jumps in my lap very rarely, but except for when I'm tripping or rolling, that cat wants to be right there.
Do you think it's because the cat enjoys it? And the closer it is, the proximity controls the strength with which your electromagnetic fields interact?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, neither do I.
I think I act differently to the cat when I'm in those states.
That is very likely to cause a change.
Maybe just that my change in behavior around it is like I'm more welcoming, so it's I don't know. But the electromagnetic attraction or whatever is an interesting theory. I like it a lot. Have you studied the Merkaba at all? That's like spinning energy fields too.
Yeah, I learned about that from Spirit Science as well. It's so funny. So the YouTube, the Spirit Science YouTube channel, he kind of takes concepts from this book called The Flower of Life, and he draws cartoons up for them and makes them in a really simple to understand way.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of how I came to understand a lot of these concepts, and it's really funny that now he's got a video about psychedelics.
Oh, wow. Right on. Yeah, I'm just definitely going to have to check out this guy's YouTube. That's interesting stuff.
He's got a book too, but I haven't read it yet.
Right on. I have actually read the book The Flower of Life. That is an interesting one.
Did you read them both? Apparently there's two parts to it.
Yeah, I think I only read the first part because I think it came across as a PDF that I saw somewhere and flipped through because it wasn't too long, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's pretty short. And it's got pictures too, so that takes up some of the space.
Yeah.
I haven't read the second one either, but I have it, like a physical copy.
Well, there's a future discussion for us for sure.
I'm sure, yeah. It covers a wide variety of topics.
Cool. Well, so we've been talking for a bit. I kind of want to go over what our plans are for the future of this thing.
Sounds good.
What we want to get into. And so my vision for these chats is to get input on all these different books that I'm reading from as many different people as I can. So I'm hoping that if we can go forward, we could pick a book or two before each one.
Yeah.
And reach out to the community, looking for other people that have read it or letting them know we're going to discuss it and to go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
Just book club style. And then we'll do some reading from the book at the beginning. We'll do a little personal dissection, and then we'll do some chats with as many community members as want to be involved. And we'll kind of put it together as a DmtWorld effort to understand some of these books that, you know, because I get one understanding from them, you get one understanding from them. Our personal experience and perspective give us completely different knowledge reading the exact same words.
Yep.
And the more ways I can have these ideas said to me, the more understanding I'm going to gain from them. So that's really my hope in these chats. Today was a little sporadic, going back and forth, but I really hope to get like some focus at the beginning and then just rock that out with different people.
Yeah, well, this was kind of, I wouldn't say impromptu, but it was kind of just kind of dipping the toes in, you know, like
right.
Get everybody
rolling,
talking.
Comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I had a conversation the other day with Alex, which should be on the site soon, I'm told. But after doing it, I was like, man, I love talking to you guys.
Yeah.
It feels so natural. It feels so great. And we're not going to change the world talking to each other, but we're going to change ourselves. And that's pretty fucking important to me.
Well,
So I want to learn as much as I can from you guys and challenge myself, you know?
yeah. I guess I totally agree and subscribe to everything that you just said about where it should go. And also, on top of that, I kind of, I see it, well, I guess what I'm going to say has to do with Alex and Michael Madness as well, because it feels like, I don't know, I think you probably have come across them, the trialogues with Terrence McKenna, Abraham, and Sheldrake.
Yep.
I feel like what we're starting, all of us, is something akin to that, where we're continuing the conversation that needs to happen. But I mean, it's not even just the world. DmtWorld. I call it the world because I don't like to say the word DMT in public, I guess. And not yet, at least. I'm not in public now, though. It's just what I've been doing in public. I think, there's a bunch of podcasts that are doing just that. They're continuing the conversation, talking about all these important things that are getting ignored by the mainstream media. A few that I have come to love are Psychedelic Salon, which is a freaking treasure trove of brilliance, and just he's one of the people that I first heard say find the others besides Terrence McKenna, and he gave us a way to do that. Not only did he bring people together, he and the other people that are working with him now, he introduced us to so many people. I don't know these, but they don't know me, but I know them, and I feel like they're my friends because of who they are and what they're doing. I feel like we have the same agenda, I guess you'd call it, and another one.
We're having the same conversation.
Yes, exactly. We're all continuing the conversation, and that's the important part, especially whenever the authorities are against mind expansion and caring about others. The third wave is a good one.
Lorenzo is what he's done there. Lorenzo Haggerty with the Psychedelic Salon is just fantastic. Like the podcasts that I listen to and have all been influenced by people that I've just heard on his show, and then I just went exploring and found them elsewhere. And he was definitely the first podcast I really subscribed to that opened my eyes to this conversation going on everywhere, But Yeah, there's some good ones now. There really are. There's the Psychedelics Today, which they're doing a great job covering the research and stuff that's going on. There's the DmtX podcast that started up that's all around the new DmtX program where they're going in for the intravenous blow drip experience. So they're having a lot of great conversations. There's some really good ones, some really good podcasts out there. And I listen to a lot of them. I have a long drive to work, and then at work I'm often doing just mindless tasks so that I can have a headphone in when I'm doing it. So
yeah, me too.
Favorites as well. But and in the future we could even do some podcast review instead of book club review type stuff. Talk about one that really got us both, or got, if somebody out there listening heard one that you want to break down and talk more about. That's what this is. Let's continue the conversation wherever it started, from a book, from a movie, from anywhere. Let's dissect it all a little more and see how far we can take it.
Maybe we could, instead of naming it book club, we could name it something about the conversation, continuing the conversation, or I don't know.
Yeah, I dig
just
that.
Ideas.
I dig that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
I like it better.
Awesome. My favorite podcast, actually, I'm going to plug him because I love him, and he's in our community, is Mike Brink with
Micadelic. Yeah, his stuff's good.
His podcast is like right up my personal alley. There's no other one out there that he's exploring everything that I've been digging through, and I love that dude. He's awesome. He's become my hero. He overtook Rogan as top podcast in my book.
Oh, wow. I haven't gotten that much into him. I've heard one or two, and they were fascinating. But
he's had so many good guests in his solo cast, just him spitballing for hours.
Cool.
I could listen to him for hours. I think he's great. I really enjoy his stuff. But, yeah, continuing the conversation, I kind of like that. That's a cool one.
It's got a little alliteration there, too.
Yeah, I like it. So cool. I'm so glad we got to do this today and start digging through a few of our books.
Do you mind if I ended on one more quote?
I love it.
All right,
Hit
cool. The key to a logical assessment of personality and feelings is an understanding of the concept of ego. Now that we're talking about feelings, personality, and ways of being, a discussion of the role and function of ego and its relationship to fear will be helpful. To understand ego, you must first understand fear. At the deepest level, fear is generated by ignorance within a consciousness of low quality. Fear and high entropy are mutually supportive. One creates and encourages the other. Earlier, we mentioned the evolutionary pressure was at the root of the four major motivators of mankind. We didn't, but he rephrases
He
them.
did.
Survival and material success, male-female relationship and sex, influence, control, and power, and self-improvement, love, and fear. The first three are a direct result of a physical evolution, whereas the last is a product of consciousness evolution. All four are uniquely blended together within each individual. It is this motivational mixture that drives the bulk of our choices. Whenever an individual perceives that he or she is seriously lacking any of the first three, fear is generated, especially if the consciousness quality is low. Additionally, fear arises from the incomplete knowledge or understanding. It leaps up in dread of unknown possibilities. Worry, anxiety, and feelings are inadequacy breed insecurity and fear. Ignorance, fanning the flames of fear, can quickly whip itself into a blaze of insecurities, building upon one another. Many of us have experienced this unhealthy degenerative process when a loved one becomes unexpectedly ill or hurt, or is unaccounted for, and we do not know how the situation is going to turn out. I'm almost done. Fear resides in the intent or motivation, not the action. For example, purposefully avoiding trouble may be an act of good judgment and not necessarily an act motivated by fear. Fear, as a product of intent, represents a state of condition of consciousness. Fear is like mind cancer. It is a disease of consciousness, a dysfunctional condition of ignorance trapped within a little picture. Fear is expressed by high entropy intent, driving action that reflects neither understanding nor vision. Like a biological cancer, fear is debilitating and destructive of the system in which it grows. Ego is the direct result of fear. Needs, wants, expectations, and desires are generated by the ego as part of its short-sighted strategy to reduce the anxiety produced by fear. And I could keep reading and reading because all of it's really fascinating, but that's where my highlighting stops.
That's awesome. I love talking about fear. There's some good stuff in there. Whenever an individual perceives that he or she is seriously lacking in any of the first three, fear is generated. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. A lot of the things he says, they're like, duh, but then it's also like, man, I never heard it put like that.
Right, exactly. Fear is debilitating and destructive of the system in which it grows.
Yeah, I thought that was really powerful.
That's good stuff. Fear creates more fear.
Exactly.
The only way to get rid of it is love.
Love
destroys fear. So, man, that's awesome. I like that. We got to get rid of ignorance, but we mostly just have to get rid of fear.
Yeah.
You're never going to get rid of ignorance. It's always going to exist, but that doesn't mean we have to be afraid.
Exactly. Yeah, fear of the unknown is very real and prevalent. That's why we are in the
boiling hot water we're in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. Cool. Well, thank you for ending us with that. I loved it.
Yeah, thanks for talking, man. I you're one of my favorite people, honestly, and I'm so glad I met you. And
feelings mutual, man.
Thanks, man. I look forward to sharing.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to get much smarter hanging out with you.
All right, man. I look forward to the next one. I don't mean we'll figure it out.
There. Yeah. You guys, love you. Take care. Love each other.
Yeah. Much love, everyone. And, be safe. Test your substances.
Oh yeah. Stay away from fentanyl. It's killing all my friends.
Oh.
All right. Love you guys.
Later, dude.
Peace.